John Carter drove his truck down the empty highway. The stars shone bright above the Adirondack Mountains. He was tired after 3 days of camping alone in the wilderness. The trip had been good for him. After 15 years as a Navy SEAL and 5 more as a security consultant, he needed time to clear his head. The radio played soft country music as his headlights cut through the darkness. It was nearly midnight, and he hadn't seen another car for at least 30 minutes. John rolled down his window to let the cool night air keep him alert for the final stretch home. The first sign that something was wrong came when his radio turned to static. Then the truck's engine sputtered. John frowned and checked his fuel gauge. It showed full, just as it had when he left the campsite. "What the hell?" he muttered as the dashboard lights flickered. Then he saw it. A bright light appeared in his rearview mirror. At first he thought it was a car with high beams, but it grew too quickly, too bright. It bathed the entire road in a blue-white glow that made his skin tingle. John gripped the steering wheel tighter as the truck began to shake. The light now surrounded him completely. He felt a strange lightness in his stomach, the same feeling he got during parachute jumps when he first stepped out of a plane. He looked out the window and gasped. The ground was falling away below him. Or rather, the truck was rising above the ground. John tried to open his door, but it wouldn't budge. The truck was now at least 30 feet in the air and still rising. A wave of dizziness hit him. The light became too bright to bear. John's last thought before losing consciousness was that no one would believe this, not even his old SEAL teammates. When John opened his eyes, he lay on a smooth surface that felt neither warm nor cold. The ceiling above him curved in a way that no human building would. It glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the material itself. He sat up slowly, his head pounding. Instead of his jeans and flannel shirt, he now wore a plain gray jumpsuit made of a fabric he couldn't identify. It felt almost like silk, but stronger. Around his neck was a metal collar, snug but not tight enough to choke him. "What is this?" he said aloud, his voice echoing slightly in the empty room. One wall of the room was transparent, like glass, but clearer. Through it, John could see tall, slender figures moving around in what looked like a control room. They had blue-tinted skin and moved with strange grace. Their arms and legs were longer than human limbs, and their heads were slightly larger, with no hair. Their eyes were the most striking feature, large, almond-shaped, and glowing with an inner light that shifted between blue and violet. John stood up carefully and approached the transparent wall. One of the figures noticed him and spoke to another. They both turned to look at him with curious expressions. John felt like an animal in a zoo. A section of the wall slid open without a sound. A female alien entered. John could tell by her more curved shape and smaller stature compared to some of the others he had seen. She carried a small device in her long-fingered hand. "Hello, John Carter," she said, her mouth moving strangely around the English words. The voice seemed to come from the device rather than her mouth. "I am Lyra, diplomatic officer of the Azurian exploration vessel Celestial Harmony." John backed away. "How do you know my name?" "We scanned your identification cards and the electronic devices in your ground transportation," Lyra said. "We also mapped your brain patterns while you were unconscious. Standard procedure for all new companions." "Companions?" John repeated. "You mean captives?" Lyra's head tilted slightly. "That is a negative perspective. You have been selected for a great honor. You will join the personal collection of our ship's ruling council." "Collection? Like pets?" John felt anger rising in his chest. "More than pets. Companions. Partners. Some of your kind might use the term. Consorts." The translation device made her voice sound pleasant, but John detected no emotion in her large eyes. "Where am I? Where's Earth?" John demanded. "Earth is approximately 4 million of your kilometers behind us now. We are traveling toward the outer edge of your solar system." Lyra gestured to the collar around his neck. "The neural interface you wear ensures your safety and compliance. It will help you learn our language and customs." John's hand went to the collar. He felt no clasp or opening. "And if I want it removed?" "That is not possible. But do not worry. It causes no harm and will make your transition much easier." Lyra moved toward the door. "Come with me. I will show you to your quarters and explain your duties." John considered refusing, but decided to play along for now. He needed to learn more about his situation before attempting any kind of escape. Years of military training had taught him to observe and gather intelligence first. Lyra led him through quarters made of the same strange material as his cell. They passed other aliens, most giving John curious glances. Some wore uniforms with different colors and patterns that he guessed signified rank or job. They also passed other beings that were clearly not Azurian. Some looked almost human except for skin colors and impossible shades of green, purple, or gold. Others were completely alien. One had 4 arms and skin like rough tree bark. Another floated rather than walked and appeared to be made of some kind of living crystal. All of these non-Azurians wore collars similar to John's. They performed various tasks, cleaning, carrying items, or standing attentively beside Azurians. Some gave John sympathetic looks as he passed. "Our ship houses representatives from 27 different worlds," Lyra explained. "The Council selects only the finest specimens from each species we encounter." "And what does the Council do with these specimens?" John asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. "They serve, they entertain, they provide genetic material for research, and they help us understand the diversity of life in our galaxy." Lyra stopped before a large door that slid open at their approach. "This is the central atrium where the Council conducts official business." John stepped into a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that showed what looked like a real-time view of space outside the ship. Stars streaked by, suggesting they were moving at incredible speed. In the center of the room, 7 Azurians sat in raised chairs arranged in a semicircle. All were female, wearing elaborate outfits with glowing patterns that shifted and changed. Around them stood various aliens, attending to their needs. "The ruling council," Lyra said with reverence in her translated voice. "They have expressed particular interest in you, John Carter. Humans have unique qualities that fascinate our scientists." John studied the council members, noting their subtle differences. One wore what appeared to be a military uniform. Another had devices and tools attached to her clothing. A third wore simpler garments covered with symbols he couldn't understand. "What do they want from me?" John asked quietly. "For now, to observe you, to test your abilities. If you prove worthy, one of them may select you as her personal companion." Lyra's eyes flicked to the council. "It is a great honor, one many would envy." John saw the situation clearly now. This wasn't a diplomatic mission or scientific expedition. He had been abducted to become part of an alien harem. His jaw tightened as he considered his options. "And if I refuse this honor?" "The neural collar prevents such confusion of purpose," Lyra said. "You will learn to appreciate your new role. All companions do, eventually." John nodded slowly, but inside his mind was racing. The Navy had trained him to survive and escape in hostile territory. This might be farther from home than any SEAL had ever been, but the principles would be the same. Observe, adapt, find weaknesses, and exploit them. He would play the obedient companion while looking for a way to regain control of his fate. These aliens might have advanced technology, but they had made one critical mistake. They had captured a human who refused to be anyone's pet. 3 weeks passed on the Azurian ship. John learned to follow the daily routine while watching everything around him. Each morning, a soft chime woke him in his small but comfortable room. He would eat the food that appeared in a slot in the wall. It tasted bland but gave him energy. Then he would be taken to different parts of the ship to perform simple tasks or to be studied by the AZUR. IANS. John paid careful attention to the 7 council members. Each one had a different role on the ship. Lyra was the diplomat who spoke with captured species. Vila was the scientist who ran tests on the companions. Nyx handled security with her team of guards. Myra controlled the ship's navigation. Karina fixed the ship's engines and systems. Andromeda took care of medical needs. Above them all was Cassiopeia, the supreme commander. John noticed that the council members did not always agree with each other. Nyx often argued with Lyra about how to treat the companions. Cassiopeia would end these arguments with a wave of her hand. Vila stayed quiet during these fights but watched everyone carefully. You learn quickly, Lyra told John one day as she taught him to use the ship's food preparation system. Most new companions take months to understand our technology. I've always been good with machines, John said with a humble smile. He had decided to appear helpful and interested. This made the Azurians trust him more and watch him less. The collar around his neck was the biggest problem. John had tested it several times in secret. If he tried to do anything against the Azorians' rules, the collar would send pain through his body. It also seemed to track his location on the ship. But John had noticed something interesting when he felt strong emotions. The collar's control seemed weaker. One day, John was assigned to help Vila in her laboratory. This was his first time working directly with a council member. He entered the lab and saw Vila bent over a table covered with strange equipment. She looked up as he entered. "Companion John?" she said through her translator. "I need assistance with these samples." John bowed his head respectfully. "I'm happy to help." As they worked, John asked careful questions about the equipment. Vila seemed pleased by his interest. She explained more than she probably should have. "These are genetic samples from 20 different species," she said, pointing to a row of glowing containers. "We are looking for compatibility patterns." "Compatibility for what?" John asked, keeping his voice casual. Vila hesitated. "For the future of all species," she finally said. While Vila was distracted by an alert from another machine, John glanced at her computer screen. The symbols were strange, but his collar translated some of them. He saw images of DNA strands being combined and split. He saw failed results marked with red symbols. He saw his own name on a list with other human companions. John realized the truth. The Azurians weren't just collecting companions for pleasure or study. They were trying to create new hybrid beings by combining DNA from different species. And humans were important to their experiments. Later that day, John sat in the companion dining area. He had been allowed more freedom to move around certain parts of the ship as the Azurians began to trust him. He noticed a man sitting alone in the corner. John had seen him before but had never spoken to him. He decided to take a chance. John sat down across from the man. "I'm John Carter." "You're human too, right?" The man looked up with tired eyes. "Daniel Wright." "Been here almost a year?" His collar looked the same as John's but had a different colored light. "Have you met other humans here?" John asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "There's Maria. She's been here 3 years. And Sam. He's good with languages." "We should talk more," John said. "I'd like to hear about your experience here." Daniel's eyes darted to the Azurian guard standing by the door. "Be careful who you trust. These walls have ears." Over the next few days, John found ways to speak briefly with the other humans. Maria Rodriguez had been a CIA agent before her capture. She told John that she had learned to resist the collars. Control through mental techniques. "Strong emotions create interference," she whispered as they passed in a corridor. "Anger works best for me." Sam Lewis had been a professor of linguistics. He had learned to understand the Azurian language without the translator. "They say things they don't want us to hear when they think we can't understand," he told John. John also watched Lyra closely. She seemed different from the other council members. Sometimes she looked sad when she thought no one was watching. Once, John saw her secretly helping a sick companion when Nix had denied them medical care. One evening, John was cleaning in Vila's lab when Lyra entered. They didn't notice him behind a large piece of equipment. "The experiments are failing," Vila said to Lyra. "Cassiopeia pushes too hard. We cannot force genetic compatibility." "You know what will happen if you question her methods," Lyra replied. "Nix and her security team support the commander." "This is not what our ancestors intended when they sent us to explore," Lyra said. "We were meant to learn from other species, not use them like breeding stock." "Be careful, sister," Vila warned. "Such talk is dangerous." John stayed perfectly still until they left. This confirmed his suspicions. There were divisions among the Azurians that he might be able to use. The next day, John was assigned to serve at a formal dinner for visiting aliens from another ship. He wore a special uniform and stood behind Vila's chair, refilling her drink when needed. The visiting aliens looked like large insects with shimmering shells. During the dinner, John observed the council members closely. Nyx and Cassiopeia sat together, speaking in low voices. They kept looking at the visitors with suspicious eyes. Vila sat between them and Lyra, looking uncomfortable. When Vila dropped her eating tool, John quickly bent to retrieve it. As he handed it back, he whispered, "I can help you." Vila's eyes widened slightly, but she gave no other reaction. Later, as the dinner ended, she told the guards, "This companion will assist me in my laboratory tonight. I have urgent work." Alone. In the lab, Vila faced John. "What did you mean?" "I know about the experiments," John said, "and I know they're failing. I believe I can help, but I need more access and information." Vila studied him for a long moment. "You are different from the others. Perhaps this is why our tests show humans have such potential." She touched a control on her wrist device. "I am assigning you as my personal assistant. This will give you more freedom of movement." John bowed his head to hide his smile. This was exactly what he needed, a position that would give him access to information and the ability to move around the ship. From Vila's lab, he could learn more about the collars. He could find the ship's weaknesses. He could contact the other humans more easily. The collar around his neck suddenly felt lighter. John knew it was still there, still controlling him. But now he had his first real advantage. The Azurians had made another mistake. They had given him exactly what he needed to begin taking control. As Vila's personal assistant, John gained new privileges. He could move through more areas of the ship. He wore a special badge that showed his new status. Other companions looked at him with a mixture of respect and suspicion. The Azurian guards watched him less closely than before. John used this freedom to meet secretly with the other humans. They gathered in a small storage room near the ship's garden area. John had discovered that this room had no monitoring devices. "We need to learn more about these collars," John said to Maria, Daniel, and Sam. "They're the key to controlling us." Maria touched her collar. "I've been practicing resistance techniques. When I focus my mind and feel strong anger, I can ignore simple commands." "That matches what I've observed," John said. "The collars weren't made for human brains. They don't work perfectly on us." Sam nodded. "The Azurians don't realize this. Their language has many words about how well the collars control other species, but they have no words for partial control or resistance." Daniel had been studying the collar technology from a different angle. As Andromeda's medical assistant, he had seen how the collars connected to the nervous system. "The collars read our thoughts and feelings," Daniel explained, "but they can only detect certain patterns. Strong emotions create too much mental noise for the collars to process properly." John shared what he had learned from Vila's lab. "The Azurians are trying to create hybrid beings by mixing DNA from different species. They think humans have special genetic qualities that make us compatible with their DNA. That explains why they've been collecting blood and tissue samples from us," Maria said. "But the experiments are failing," John continued. "And there's disagreement among the council members about what to do next." John told them about the tension between Cassiopeia and Lyra, with Nyx supporting the commander and Vila caught in the middle. This division might give them an opportunity. "We need allies," John said. "Even with the four of us working together, we can't take control of a ship this size." The next day, John was helping Lyra prepare for a diplomatic meeting. He had noticed that she often requested him when she needed assistance, even though he was officially assigned to Vila. As they worked, John carefully tested the waters. "The other companions seem to respect you more than the other council members," John said as he arranged items on a table. Lyra paused. "I try to treat all beings with dignity." "That's rare among your people," John said, taking a risk. Lyra looked at him sharply. "You speak boldly for a companion." "I speak honestly," John replied. "I've seen how Nyx treats the others, and I've seen how you sometimes help those in need." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she touched a control on her wrist device. The small room hummed softly. "We can speak freely now," she said. "This creates a field that blocks monitoring." John was surprised but tried not to show it. "Why would you need that?" "Because not all Azurians agree with our current path." Lyra's eyes showed sadness. "Our people were once explorers and diplomats. We sought knowledge and peaceful exchange with other species." "What changed?" John asked. "Cassiopeia became Supreme Commander. She believes our purpose is to create a perfect species that combines the best traits of all others." Lyra sighed. "She thinks this will save us from a coming disaster predicted in our ancient texts." John saw an opportunity. "And you disagree?" "I believe we have misinterpreted our mission. Forcing compatibility through genetic manipulation feels wrong." Lyra looked directly at John. "Many companions have died in these experiments." This confirmed John's worst fears. "So we're all just test subjects." "Not all of us support this," Lyra said. "There are those of us who wish to return to our original purpose. But Nyx and her security forces keep Cassiopeia in power." John took a chance. What if things changed? What if the companions could help you? Lyra's eyes widened. That would be impossible. "The collars ensure compliance." "Perhaps not as completely." "As you believe," John said carefully. Lyra stared at him. "You can resist the collar?" John nodded slowly. "Humans can, to some extent, and I suspect other species can too." Lyra seemed both frightened and fascinated. "This is dangerous knowledge." "John Carter." "Knowledge often is," John replied. "But it can also create opportunity for change." After a long silence, Lyra said, "I will consider what you have told me. For now, we should return to our duties before others become suspicious." Over the next few days, John continued to build trust with both Vila and Lyra. He worked hard and showed intelligence. He asked thoughtful questions about Azurian culture and history. Meanwhile, he met with the human group whenever possible to share information. One night, Daniel made an important discovery. "I found medical files about the collars," he told the others. "They were designed for Azurian neural pathways. They don't integrate properly with human brains because our emotional responses are different." Maria had been teaching the others her mental resistance techniques. "Focus on a strong memory," she instructed. "Something that makes you feel powerful anger or joy. Hold that feeling while pushing against the collar's commands." Sam had learned enough of the Azurian language to access parts of the ship's computer system. "The ship is on course for a place called the Repository," he reported. "It's some kind of ancient site built by a species the Azurians call the progenitors." John was putting the pieces together. The Azurians were searching for something at this repository. It was connected to their genetic experiments and the disaster Lyra had mentioned. One evening, John was cleaning Vila's lab after hours when Lyra entered unexpectedly. She looked worried. "John Carter, I need to speak with you," she said, activating her anti-monitoring device. "What's wrong?" John asked. "Cassiopeia has moved up the timetable. The next phase of experiments will begin tomorrow." Lyra's voice shook slightly. "You and the other humans will be placed in deep stasis for intensive genetic manipulation." John felt cold fear. "That sounds dangerous." "It is. Many subjects do not survive." Lyra hesitated. "I cannot stand by any longer. I want to help you and the others." John could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Why would you risk yourself for us?" "Because what we are doing is wrong." Lyra's eyes glowed with emotion. "Our ancestors would be ashamed of what we have become. We were meant to be guardians of life in the galaxy, not its exploiters." "What can we do?" John asked. "I can temporarily disable your collar," Lyra said, "but only for a few hours. It would allow you to move freely and help the others." "When?" John asked. "Tonight, during the sleep cycle. The security systems run on reduced power then." Lyra handed him a small device. "This will help you access restricted areas. Use it wisely." After Lyra left, John contacted the other humans through their secret communication method, tapping messages in an old Earth code on water pipes that ran through their rooms. That night, John lay in his bed waiting. At precisely the time Lyra had specified, his collar made a soft click and the light on it dimmed. He touched it and felt no response. For the first time since his capture, John was truly free. He moved quickly but cautiously through the darkened corridors. He had memorized the guard patterns and knew which areas to avoid. Using Lyra's device, he opened the door to Maria's room. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "It's time," John whispered. "We're making our move tonight." John and Maria moved quietly through the dimly lit corridors. They reached Daniel's room next and used Lyra's device to open the door. Daniel was already awake, as if he had been expecting them. "The collars?" Daniel whispered, touching his own. "Temporarily disabled," John explained. "We don't have much time. We need to get Sam and access the ship's main archive." The three humans made their way to Sam's quarters. As they turned a corner, they nearly ran into an Azurian guard. John pushed his friends back into the shadows just in time. The guard passed by without noticing them. "That was close," Maria whispered. "Where's this archive?" "Near the center of the ship," John said. "Lyra mentioned it once. It contains the history of their species and information about their mission." They found Sam and quickly explained the situation. Sam's eyes lit up with excitement. "I can help navigate the archive system," he said. "I've learned enough of their language to read basic texts." The four humans moved carefully through the ship, avoiding the night patrol guards. John led them through service corridors that were rarely used. Finally, they reached a large door marked with special symbols. "This is it," John said. He used Lyra's device to gain access. The archive room was vast, with glowing data terminals lining the walls. In the center stood a large crystal structure that pulsed with blue light. "This is the main data core," Sam said, approaching one of the terminals. "It should contain everything the Azurians know." While Sam worked on accessing the data, John kept watch at the door. Maria and Daniel explored the room, looking for anything useful. "John, you need to see this," Sam called after several minutes. "I've found something important." John joined Sam at the terminal. The screen showed images of beings that looked similar to the Azurians, but taller and with more complex features. "These are the progenitors," Sam explained. "According to these records, they created the Azurians thousands of years ago." "Created them?" John asked. "You mean the Azurians are artificial beings?" "Not exactly, more like genetically engineered." Sam pointed to different sections of text. "The progenitors were an ancient race that reached an advanced state of evolution. They created the Azurians as caretakers for the galaxy before they ascended to another plane of existence." John was stunned. "So the Azurians aren't naturally evolved beings at all?" "No," Sam continued. "They were designed with a specific purpose to watch over developing species and guide them. But something in these instructions has been misinterpreted by Cassiopeia." Maria joined them. "What kind of misinterpretation?" Sam scrolled through more data. "The progenitors left prophecies about a coming galactic cataclysm. They believed that cooperation between species was the key to survival. But Cassiopeia thinks they meant genetic combination, creating a perfect hybrid species through forced DNA manipulation." "That explains the experiments," Daniel said. "They think they're fulfilling their purpose by combining DNA from different species." John thought about what Lyra had told him. "And some Azurians, like Lyra, believe this interpretation is wrong," Sam nodded. "According to these records, the progenitors valued diversity and natural evolution. They didn't want to force species to combine. They wanted them to work together through alliance and cooperation." "Look at this," Maria said, pointing to another section of data. "It says humans have unique genetic markers that make them especially compatible with Azurian DNA. That's why they're so interested in us," Daniel realized. John continued reading. "There's more. Cassiopeia is planning an expedition to Earth, not just to collect a few more humans, a full-scale invasion to harvest genetic material." The four humans looked at each other in horror. Millions of lives were at stake. "We need to stop this," John said firmly. "And we need to contact Earth somehow, warn them." Sam studied the terminal. I think I can access the ship's communication system from here. We could send a message toward Earth. Do it, John ordered. Send a warning about the Azurians and their plans. While Sam worked on the message, John discovered more information about the neural collars. The collars were designed by the progenitors as teaching tools, not control devices. Cassiopeia modified them to ensure obedience. Daniel examined the data. There's a master control system. If we could access it, we might be able to deactivate all the collars at once. Where is it? John asked. In Cassiopeia's private chambers? Daniel said, heavily guarded. Maria looked at her wrist. We have less than an hour before the collars reactivate. We should get back to our quarters before that happens. Wait, Sam said. The message is ready to send. He activated the transmission. A beam of energy shot out from the ship, racing toward Earth at incredible speed. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. They've detected the transmission, John said. We need to move now. The 4 humans rushed out of the archive room. Guards would be coming soon. They needed to split up and return to their quarters before they were caught. Meet tomorrow at the usual place if you can, John told the others. And remember, we now know the truth about the Azurians. We can use this knowledge. John barely made it back to his room before heavy footsteps approached. He jumped into bed and pretended to be asleep just as the door opened. A guard looked in, then closed the door again. A few minutes later, John's collar activated with a soft click. The freedom was gone, but John felt hope for the first time since his capture. They had sent a warning to Earth. They had discovered the truth about the Azurians and their mission. The next morning, the ship was in chaos. Guards moved everywhere, checking all companions more carefully than usual. John was summoned to Vila's laboratory. When he arrived, both Vila and Lyra were waiting. Their faces showed concern. Someone accessed the archives last night, Vila said, and sent an unauthorized transmission toward your planet. John kept his face neutral. That sounds serious. Nyx believes it was companions working together. Lyra said. Her eyes met John's briefly, sending a silent warning. All companions will be questioned. I was sleeping in my quarters, John said calmly. Your collar shows you were inactive during that time, Vila confirmed, looking at a data pad. Lyra stepped closer. Cassiopeia has ordered all human companions to be placed in stasis immediately. The schedule has been moved forward because of this security breach. John felt a chill. Their actions had accelerated Cassiopeia's plans rather than stopping them. When? He asked. Tonight, Vila said. I'm sorry, John, I have argued against this, but I was overruled. As John was escorted back to his quarters by a guard, his mind raced. They had only hours to act before they would be placed in stasis chambers. Once that happened, they would have no chance to resist. He needed to contact the others. He needed to find Lyra. Most of all, he needed a new plan, one that would free not just the humans, but all companions on the ship. The knowledge they had gained was powerful, but time was running out. John sat on his bed, thinking hard. Time was running out. Soon, guards would come to take him and the other humans to the stasis chambers. He needed a plan. A soft knock on his door made him look up. The door slid open and Lyra entered quickly. She looked nervous. We don't have much time, she whispered, activating her anti-monitoring device. Nyx has ordered all humans to be placed in stasis within 2 hours. Can you disable our collars again? John asked. Lyra shook her head. Not possible. Security has been increased. All collar controls are being monitored. She hesitated, then handed him a small metal object. But I can give you this. John looked at the device. It was smaller than his thumb. What is it? A key to the master collar control system, Lyra explained. It will give you access to Cassiopeia's private terminal. From there, you could potentially deactivate all collars on the ship. John's eyes widened. Why are you helping us like this? You're risking everything. Because I believe in the true mission of my people, Lyra said. The progenitors created us to protect life, not exploit it. Cassiopeia has led us down a dark path, and she paused. I have seen how humans care for each other, how you work together. It reminds me of what we once were. How do I reach Cassiopeia's terminal? John asked. There is a service tunnel that leads to her chambers, Lyra said, showing him a small map on her wrist device. Few know about it. It was designed as an emergency escape route. John memorized the route. What about the others? Maria, Daniel, and Sam? I will delay the stasis procedure as long as possible, Lyra promised. But you must hurry. Once you reach the terminal, insert this key and enter the command sequence I've programmed into it. It will deactivate all companion collars for 30 minutes. And then? John asked. Then chaos, Lyra said simply. Use it wisely. After Lyra left, John prepared himself. He had one chance to save everyone. He waited until the guard patrol passed. His door then slipped out into the corridor. The service tunnel was hidden behind a panel in a storage room. John found it easily using Lyra's directions. The tunnel was narrow and dark. He crawled through it, feeling his way forward. After what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, John reached the end of the tunnel. A small grate opened into Cassiopeia's private chambers. The room was empty. John pushed the grate open and climbed into the room. It was large and elegant, with strange artwork on the walls and soft lighting. At the center stood a curved desk with a terminal. Just as John reached the terminal, he heard voices approaching. He quickly hid behind a large piece of furniture. Cassiopea entered with Nyx. They were arguing. The humans are too dangerous, Nyx was saying. The security breach proves they can resist the collars somehow, which makes them even more valuable for our work, Cassiopea replied. Their genetic adaptability is exactly what we need. And what about Lyra and her supporters? Nyx asked. They grow bolder in their opposition. Cassiopea waved dismissively. Once we reach the repository and complete the final phase, their objections will be meaningless. We will have fulfilled our purpose. The two Azurians left the room, still talking. John waited a few moments to ensure they were gone, then rushed to the terminal. He inserted Lyra's key. The screen lit up with strange symbols. Then it changed to show a menu John could understand. The key contained a translation program. John found the collar control system and entered the command sequence Lyra had given him. A warning message appeared asking for confirmation. John pressed yes. Throughout the ship, all companion collars simultaneously deactivated. A ship-wide alarm began to sound. John ran back to the service tunnel and made his way to the companion quarters. Confusion had erupted everywhere. Companions were emerging from their rooms, touching their silent collars in disbelief. Guards rushed about, trying to maintain order. John found Maria, Daniel, and Sam in the corridor. It worked, Maria exclaimed. The collars are off. Not for long, John warned. We have 30 minutes at most. We need to take control of key ship systems before then. They split up, each with a different target. Maria headed for the security center with a group of companions from different species. Daniel went to the medical bay to prevent the stasis chambers from being activated. Sam led another group to the communication center to send more messages to Earth and other worlds. John made his way to the main command center where Cassiopea would be. He was joined by companions who had been warriors on their homeworlds. Fighting broke out across the ship. Most companions had never been trained for combat, but they outnumbered the guards. And some, like Maria with her CIA training, knew exactly how to fight. John reached the command center just as Nyx was organizing a defense. A brief but intense battle followed. John's military training proved valuable as he disabled several guards without killing them. Finally, he stood face to face with Cassiopea. She looked at him with a mixture of anger and surprise. You, she sighed. A simple human. How did you manage this? Not just me, John replied. All of us together. And with help from Azurians who remember their true purpose. Lyra entered the command center with Vila and several other Azurians who had joined. The rebellion. It's over, Cassiopea, Lyra said. The companions are free. Your guards have been contained. Cassiopeia's eyes flashed with anger. You betray our mission. The progenitors created us to save the galaxy through genetic perfection. No, John said firmly. We found the truth in your archives. The progenitors wanted cooperation between species, not forced hybridization. They valued diversity and natural evolution. He speaks the truth, Vila added. I have studied the original texts. We have been misled. Cassiopeia looked from face to face, seeing her defeat. What will you do now? Kill me? No, John said. That's not how we do things. Not humans, not Azurians, not any species that values life. Over the next few hours, a new order was established on the ship. Lyra was chosen as temporary leader by both Azurians and companions. The neural collars were reprogrammed to their original purpose as translation and teaching devices, not tools of control. Wearing them became optional. Cassiopeia and her most loyal followers were confined to quarters, but treated with dignity. Many Azurians, like Vila, were relieved that the genetic experiments would end. A council was formed with representatives from all species on the ship. John was chosen to represent humans. 3 days later, the ship changed course. Instead of heading to the repository to continue Cassiopeia's misguided mission, they set course for Earth. What will happen when we reach my planet? John asked Lyra as they stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. We will come as friends, not invaders, Lyra replied. We will share knowledge, establish diplomatic relations, and invite Earth to join a true alliance of worlds. John nodded, looking out at the vast space before them. He thought about how strange his journey had been. Captured as a potential breeding specimen, he now stood as a representative of humanity in a newborn galactic alliance. The progenitors would be proud, he said. Lyra smiled. Yes, I believe they would. As Earth appeared as a small blue dot in the distance, John felt a sense of pride. Humans would not enter the galactic community as captives or test subjects, but as equals. And he had helped make it possible. The former harem had become something greater, a council of worlds based on respect and cooperation rather than domination. John had not just taken control. He had helped transform an entire society, and somewhere out among the stars, perhaps the progenitors were watching, pleased that their children had finally understood their true purpose.